What's a very American problem that isn't common in other countries? Story 1. That you can lose your job without warning. No notice period where you can get paid while looking for something else. Just getting thrown out of a workplace you've been at for years with your belongings, and that this can lead to losing your right to proper health care because of insurance. Basically, no rights and no safety net. Only the rich seem to get severance packages. Reply 1. I'm from Mexico, and I didn't realize the proportional severance wasn't standard here. Like you can just get fired after 20 years with like 2 weeks paid if they're nice, but don't have to give you anything. That's wild. Story 2. Getting time off. 2 weeks here feels like a lot. You work a bunch to get some more time off after X number of years. Other countries can get a month off. No issue, it seems like. Reply 1. I'm in the UK. I get 6 weeks plus bank holidays. I want more, asked for more, so my manager checked with HR. He now can approve another 3 weeks unpaid every year without needing further approval. Also, my American colleagues get the same benefits, including 6 months paternity leave, full pay. He used it, and he said his family genuinely questioned if he'd been fired and was trying to hide it. Reply 2. In the UK here, and due to the number of years at the same organization, I'm now at 6.5 weeks. You start off with 5.5 weeks at this org, plus public holidays, of which there are around 8 per year, I think. Reply 3. I have been at my job for almost 15 years now. I had to work for a full year before I was given 5 days vacation. I had to work there for 3 years before receiving the second week. After 8 years, I finally got the third week, and effective last year, I got my 4th week. That's the best I will ever do here. My husband negotiated 3 weeks vacation up front, but in his offer letter, it wasn't 3 weeks in the bank. It was 3 weeks accrual rate, so he still only has 10 days vacation. He's 64. Reply 4. This story kind of shows another thing that is uniquely American, and that is the importance of your job to your social standing. Asking people, I know what they do for work, just seems weird to me. Sometimes it comes up in discussions, but it's mostly contextual, when Ijibate were complaining about something, and you have something to add from your job. I literally don't know where most of my friends and relatives work, how much money they make, or anything of the sort. Whenever the topic of work comes up, it's rarely about the money. E.g., I know one friend works in a cinema because he organized a private screening there for us once. I have no idea how much he earns or what his job title there actually is. So just the fact people are nosy about your work, they start creating theories in their head that you were perhaps fired because they can't just take you at your word that you're on vacation. It's really effing weird to me. Where you work, how much you earn, etc. are considered quite personal. Private information here in Poland, same as family. On the hand, things like politics are routinely discussed with strangers, probably because we small talk through complaining, and it's easy to steer such conversation onto politics. Edit. Some people mention they discuss work with people, so I'll clarify that no. Talking about your job isn't a taboo topic. People do it all the time. The difference is how, when, and with whom they do it. Edit 2. I'll sum it up with one sentence. We talk about work, while Americans talk about jobs. Reply 5. The whole don't discuss politics thing in America is extremely toxic and part of the reason we have no class consciousness to begin with. Story 3. Extremely intrusive HOAs, homeowner associations. Just the idea of not being free to do as I please on my own property, within reason, seems ridiculous to me. Reply 1. I actually recently turned down a house that we really liked, purely because it was an HOA deal. Oh, you're going to dictate what I can and can't do on my own property? And I have to pay you for it? Lamau Gediafet. Stay F-fed. Reply 2, and it seems to be a very rules for thee, not for me situation too. My mother lives in an HOA neighborhood. She can't have a storage building that doesn't look exactly like her house, but the person across the street that is part of the HOA was approved to build an absolutely massive building on the adjoining lot. She bought it. That is strictly to continue her cornhole game hobby. Reply 3. In many countries in Europe, these regulations come from municipalities, so that you still cannot do anything you would like. but at the same time it feels more fair because the rules are less arbitrary. But they are sometimes also quite strict. E.g., they regulate the color of the house and roof, regulate the position of a building within the plot. So, e.g., on one street, all the houses need to be even. They regulate quiet hours, storing trash on your property, and prohibit cutting down trees. If you live in a multi-apartment building, there are organizations like HOAs as well, but they mainly focus on gathering money for future improvements, i.e. roof replacement, than anything else. I never understood why can't you just have the same thing in the US? Why can't you just regulate it from the government perspective and cancel HOAs altogether? Reply 4. In general, most HOAs track with what you described as occurring in Europe, although there are some exceptions. Planning and zoning regulations are highly dependent on the state, county, and even municipality, but that tends to be more focused on allowable uses of the property, setbacks, lot coverage, lot size, etc. HOAs were created for two purposes in the US. One, to pass the cost of creating and maintaining infrastructure from local governments onto developers and the people who live in those communities. 2, racism, and really this was the main reason HOAs became a thing. HOAs were originally created to keep black people out of communities and provide a mechanism for arbitrarily removing them. Now they don't operate that way today, but the laws established to enable them were still designed that way. On the scale of things with crappy racist origins in the US that still have negative effects on society, HOAs are pretty far down the list of things to fix. You also don't have to buy in an HOA. I didn't because I want to do what I want with my property. But for lower cost properties like condos or townhomes, HOAs are more common. Story 4. For-profit prison system. There is a reason people have to go to jail for 20 years for weed. And it is not because it's wrong. Reply 1. This is honestly one of my big concerns about all of this ongoing immigration/deportation ice crap. I guarantee some folks are making a crap ton of money running these programs and will be highly motivated to have it continue at a high volume of turnover to maximize the money they are sucking off the government tit. Reply 2. Just read a piece about prisoners in Alabama working in the fields, picking cotton for no money, and being watched by men on horses. The piece was about slavery is still very much here. Reply 3. Not only is it still here, it's actually literally in the Constitution that it's legal. The 13th Amendment is very short and concise in what it does, and that is abolish slavery and indentured servitude with one singular exception, as punishment for a crime. Story 5. As a non-American, I see many outraged discussions about public bathrooms around the overly popular trans debate. In Italy, the outside door of some public bathrooms is kept open, and you wouldn't violate anyone's privacy walking in the wrong one. Why? Because each stall is an effing room, with a brick wall and a door around it, down to the floor as it ought to be. The fact that you have no privacy with people of the same sex/gender in the US, not even the option of it, is absolutely nuts. Reply 1. It's astonishing how primitive American toilets are. Like weird, no one thought that it doesn't have to be like that. Story 6. Active shooter drills for kids in school. Bulletproof backpacks. Edit. For all the people that don't believe me, here's one for your tender-aged daughter. List of U.S. school shootings prior to 2000. First link to a school shooting was the song I Don't Like Mondays, which relates to the shooting. January 1979, that's 45 years ago, yet there's records going back to 1764. Granted, it has been on the increase these last few decades. There have been 7 school shootings this year that resulted in injuries or deaths, according to an Education Week analysis. There have been 228 such shootings since 2018. January 1st, 2009 to May 21st, 2018, there have been 288 school shootings in the U.S. The next nearest is Mexico at 8. Pakistan at 4. Pakistan has 275 million. Nigeria has 227 million people and 4 school shootings. The U.S. has 340 million people and 288 school shootings in the same period. Story 7, being required to pay a fortune to be in someone else's wedding party. Bridesmaids being forced to buy a dress of the brides, choosing and pay for bachelorette vacations and bridal showers and gifts. In other nations, paying for the bridesmaids is a wedding cost for the couple and their families, bridesmaids originally being a display of wealth. You also give gifts to the bridesmaids to thank them for their support, not the other way around. Reply 1. It used to be that way. I have no idea how weddings have become so, for lack of a better word, competitive. Reply 2. People really need to start declining invitations to be a bridesmaid. It needs to become socially acceptable. Story 8. There is one thing about America that I, as outsider looking in, can't not grasp. Evangelical Christians, and especially TV evangelists, is it just not exploitation? Reply 1. American schools teach that the pilgrims coming to colonize the continent did so for the freedom to practice their religion. They fail to mention it was because all the other branches of Christianity asked them to calm down. The United States evangelicals have still refused to calm down about it. Reply 2. My favorite tidbit from them will always be how they left the Netherlands, known for its religious tolerance at the time, because their children were becoming a bit too friendly with other religions. We literally have letters of them saying, "Little Timmy is getting a bit too friendly with the Jewish boy next door. We should move." Reply 3. We literally have letters of them saying, "Little Timmy is getting a bit too friendly with the Jewish boy next door. We should move." Well, cults require indoctrination. Can't have little Timmy fraternizing with someone different from us. Reply 4. They will teach you that the Puritan pilgrims were fleeing religious prosecution in Europe while conveniently leaving out the weird crap they believed, like stoning people for dancing and crushing people to death with giant slabs of rocks during witchcraft trials. If you died, you are not of the devil, so you're innocent. If you somehow lived, obviously, you were a demon and got burned at the stake. Even the repressed Irish Catholics and British Anglicans/Protestants were fed up with their crap and kicked them out for being freaks, LMAO. Reply 5. Yeah, it's pretty well known here in the UK they weren't going to escape religious persecution. They went to practice religious persecution and ban any other religions. Story 9. Pretty much the entire American experience would be a dystopia anywhere else. No universal healthcare, mass shootings as background noise, toddlers dying from unsecured guns, and people going bankrupt because they got sick. A former president led an insurrection and received felonies for serious crimes, and instead of facing justice, he was reelected. Now he's pardoning the rioters, calling them patriots, and rewriting history in real time. We have entire states banning history, criminalizing teachers, and letting billionaires rewrite policy. Our cops have military gear, our prisons are privatized, our citizens worship oligarchs, and half the country thinks this is freedom. The real crisis is that half the country doesn't even know right from wrong or what's true anymore. They are so hollowed out by propaganda they can't recognize democracy dying, even as they proudly help kill it. We are collapsing, and they are cheering it on. Reply 1. As an American who has lived in Europe for nearly 4 decades, it's still hard for me to understand why Americans don't simply look over the fence to see how other countries have solved the problems you described. I'd guess that if you have a permanent mindset of believing the US is the best country in the world, you can ignore the solutions other countries have come up with and claim they are non-American and hence inferior. As just one example, I think differently about this, especially after having to pay only €170 out of pocket for all the treatment associated with the removal of a cancerous tumor on my kidney a few years ago. America is not number one in so many ways. Reply 2. I think because for years now Americans have been told that living in America is the best. It's the dream for literally everyone else. They have never needed to look elsewhere. Everyone was supposedly looking to them. There couldn't possibly be any way to improve life. Reply 3. I think this has driven some shock for Trump and co. when Denmark, Canada, and Panama pushed back aggressively on becoming part of America. They genuinely believe other countries would view that as some honor? They don't have the actual perspective of other countries who see all their warts and hyper-individualistic policies. It's shocking to them that these places aren't honored to join them. pretty wild to watch the disconnects in real time. Story 10. The fact Americans act like vacation time, healthcare, education, safety, and work-life balance are luxuries that can't possibly be afforded by society goes to show how abused and brainwashed they are. If Americans could travel and see how other countries operate, they'd come back and demand better treatment, which is why the oligarchs keep us poor. Reply 1. This is so true and very sad. I'm lucky enough to get to travel, and it's like I'm radical that I think we should get basic human necessities and treatment. Story 11. Extremely short vacation time and basically no paid maternity leave. Yeah, also not having a credit history being a bad thing. Story 12. Constantly worry, fear, and stress. It's for everything. Not being productive enough. Not being a good enough parent. Your kid falling behind or getting kidnapped. Your status of your relationship. Your weight and fitness. Meanwhile, living in the Netherlands, I met a lot of people from around the world, and everyone is much more chill about those things. No one seems chronically stressed that need to cope with massive amount of alcohol, drugs, or toxic positivity or compulsive self-care. Americans work too hard and consume too much outrage porn. They should care less and become more flexible. Bad things won't happen just because you didn't stress yourself out about the what-ifs. Story 13. I feel like religion, and particularly Christianity in America, is a uniquely American issue. American evangelical Christianity is basically antithetical to the values of Christianity as practiced in other places. Americans seem particularly inclined to extol virtue of prosperity, to demonize the poor and downtrodden. To be rich is to be righteous. American religion is hostile, cruel, and cult-like. It's weaponized. Story 14. Being so brainwashed into hyper-capitalism that all welfare is considered evil socialism. Taxes? Socialism. Food stamps? Socialism. A kindergarten? Socialism. A shelter for the homeless? Socialism. Story 15. Spending so much money on healthcare and still not everyone being covered. Like seriously, it's free elsewhere and the taxes that pay for it are way less than the premiums and copays here. Story 16. School lunch debt. In a sane country, we would just say, the cost to feed every kid is trivial. Let's just get rid of any means testing and offer it to everyone who wants it. But of course, we're hyper concerned about poor people getting the tiniest bit of help that they don't deserve, while we wave away huge subsidies to rich people as just normal and natural. Story 17. 12 weeks of maternity leave is considered generous, and only certain companies offer it. And I can't believe that some parents without any sort of paid leave have to go back to work a few days after their baby is born. We have the option of 12 or 18 months of maternity leave here in Canada. Reply 1. 4 days after giving birth, I had 13 stitches in my vagina, and I was sitting on a pillow at work. This country effing sucks.
Thanks for watching until the end. If you have a similar story to these that you want to share with us, please leave it in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave us a like and subscribe. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.